All right, welcome to the Jada Willis Experience. Man, do I have something in store for you today. I'm joined by Jennifer Watson. She is a dear friend of mine, but an HR colleague. And man, I rely on her for so many good nuggets of information, like just the breaking, cutting edge pieces of the HR industry. Like she's just a game changer. So Jennifer, welcome.
Well, Jada, you're going to disappoint the listeners when they figure out that just like everybody else. But yeah, I'm Jennifer Watson. Great to be here. And thank you for having me. I so appreciate all of your insight and partnering with you all the time. So happy to be here.
Thanks, Jennifer. Here's the deal. So and I'm just sharing this because anyone listening's like, who is this Jay Watson person? Well, you are currently the VP of HR for Lasso, and you just have years of HR experience, but you're really a coach at heart. I mean, you coach leaders. You are just, even me, when I talk to you, I feel like it's a coach session, right? Like I feel like a better, happier, more developed person after speaking to you. So, but that's my experience. Tell me what your background is. Just share that for our listeners.
Yeah, I don't know if everybody would agree with that. They love the coaching. Ask my boyfriend; he might not all the time. But so yeah, I call myself a homegrown HR professional. I was previously a teacher, then just kind of got recruited as to be an HR. I thought, why not try something new? From there, held a variety of business partner roles. And coaching is what I love. I think at the heart of every HR position, if you're in a generalist role, it involves influencing, building relationships, and coaching those around you. And it's not always the way that coaching them into what you believe. I think it's coaching them to be the best versions of themselves, help them develop their teams. So I think that is just part of who we are as HR professionals, but that is also what I love. I love helping leaders be the best versions of themselves.
So, you're speaking my language right now with the authenticity and just, showing up basically in your own strengths and then in leveraging those strengths. But we're gonna get into that shortly, because one of the reasons why I invited you into the Jada Willis Experience is really for talking about leadership roles. And specifically, I know that whenever a founder, basically you start a business because you're really good at a specific trade. And then guess what? It's blowing up. And then you get to add and hire team members. Or you're an individual contributor. You're doing an awesome job. And of course, you get more work, you get promoted, and all of a sudden you're a leader. And so I think that there are a lot of people that just aren't prepared for leadership. Is that your experience too?
I would say most are not prepared for leadership. I think it's a hard transition. We see people who are high performers, high achievers. They take on more, they want more responsibility, and we assume that they can lead a group of people. And it's a very hard transition to go from doing to leading. It's just not natural. And so I think the way that most companies, founders, anybody handles promotions in general, it just makes no sense. So I think it's going to continue the way it is. But, I think there's some stuff you can put in place to make sure that you are set up for success if that's happening for you, or if you're a founder, you're being really honest about what you need.
Right. And I think that you're right. Most individuals are just not prepared for leadership. So I want to underline and bold that for sure. But I guess they just turn to probably books or podcasts and, hey, how do I lead people? Or there's an automatic assumption of just like, hey, I'm just gonna do the right thing by people, right? But listen, good intentions, great intentions, but it doesn't mean that you're going to be an effective leader. And it's also, if there's multiple people that report to you, it's very different to lead one person versus even the second person. So I guess getting into, your thoughts and your advice, I know that you have, again, helped promoted several individuals into a leadership role. So what sort of advice do you have?
So I think I kind of use this acronym RAZ, R-A-Z. So, and my brain works on acronyms. So the first one is really It's just easier. I don't know, a short attention span over here. So the first one is reflect. I think it's so important that as you go into a leadership role, you're excited, you're nervous, you're ready to make a difference. Podcasts and books are great places to start, but that's everyone else's experience. That's everyone else's leadership journey. Yours is going to be your own. And so I really think you got to take some time to think about, okay, what do I believe about myself? And what do I think I'm going to struggle with? And what are the thoughts that I'm already having about what I'm going to struggle with in this role? Perfect example. I'll give you one for mine. So I struggle with numbers. I've always thought of myself as not being great at math. So if I were to be a leader, first time promoted, or I were to hire somebody and I go into a meeting and they say, hey, how did you get this number? If I already have the belief that I'm not great at numbers, I could see that as they're challenging me. And then all of a sudden I fly off the handle and I come off in a way I don't mean to. So I think it's just so important that you have that reflection moment first to say, what are the areas I'm going to struggle in? What do I need to be aware of? And then how am I going to work through those? So I think that's the first part, because if you don't know yourself, you're never going to be able to lead others. I think the second part is assess. So thinking about, what do I want to be known for? And don't pick 100 things, pick 2 to 3 things. Do I want to be known as an authentic leader? What does that look like? Do I want to be known as the person who pushes people in a loving way until they produce something great? Do I want to be known as the leader who trusts my people without any question? What do you want to be for? That's so important, because if you truly have those 2 to 3 things, you put it on a Post-it, every conversation, every email should run through that filter until it becomes natural. And then the last one, which is my favorite, is the Z, which is zip it. Like, don't talk and insert yourself for the first 90 days. You are there to learn. You hired smart people. You work with smart people. They are there for a reason. You're not a doer. To guide and learn. So you have got to be quiet, observe, listen, and really make sure that you understand how the sausage is made. Because if you can't explain every part of that to someone who has nothing to do with it, then there's no point. So that's my model, RAZ. I think it just is a great way to remember it.
Oh my goodness. I mean, that was, it was so good, but especially if, again, I'm a new leader, I'm overwhelmed because you're drinking from a fire hose. I mean, that's just what's going to happen. And you're like, how should I even behave? What should I do? What are my first steps? Like, this is a perfect model that's going to help me just get in the right mindset, the headspace, and how I'm interacting with my team. This is perfect. So can we call it razzle dazzle?
Razzle dazzle, because that's what you're going to do when you get in that role. But and I think it's important to acknowledge that this is, even if you already were a leader, going into a new role is going to take the same thing. It's not just a one-time, okay, I know what I want to do. You're going to have to recreate yourself, and you're going to learn something new every time. So you can razzle dazzle.
Razzle dazzle. I think let's go back to the R, because I think what you're also describing is a level of, yes, being introspective, but also being aware of your insecurities, because if someone does challenge you, then automatically that should trigger, that would trigger you to have that reaction that you were describing. And so it's, it's one word essentially, but it really is charging you to do the deeper work, to become aware of your own feelings, your own limitations, because if not, that would really impact the relationship that you have with that employee.
Yeah. And I think a great place to start, look at all the feedback you've been given over the years. What are your blind spots? What have you been told in a performance review that you were like, I'm not that person? That's where you start. You start with the places that you were surprised by, or you're like, I would never do. I don't know why they thought that about me. You're not self-aware. Other people's perception is reality. That's just how it is.
That's a really good point. So if you've been getting feedback, the same feedback, but you're like, I just don't see it. So what would you think that people should do if they just, again, keep getting the same feedback? So whether it be from a peer, your supervisor, in different positions, what's the next step there? Because maybe you don't see it. You don't know how to even change.
I think initially feedback, the root of feedback, it, I think people get defensive. It takes a very, very special person to not get defensive about feedback from anybody, from your partner, from your kids. My daughter said something about my makeup the other day, and I was like, whoa, too close to home. And she's 4. Like, it's natural to be defensive. And so I think changing the defensiveness to curiosity. Why can I not see this? Asking questions. If you have those trusted people, like I could come to you and be like, Jada, I keep getting this feedback that I'm defensive. Do you see that? How could you see that? If you don't see that, what would you think about me? How would I respond? Be curious and don't judge yourself because you've already done that. Really be curious about, what does this mean? What do I display? And I know this is going to be probably not like leadership experience. What does your body feel in those moments? Like when someone gives you that feedback, what does your body feel? Because your body responds always before your mind does. You will always get a tight chest where you think, oh my gosh, I'm anxious. Your body will tense and you will feel that when you get defensive. Like your body will always respond quicker. And so I think even starting there to say like, okay, how do I physically show up when that's what's said to me? I'm guaranteeing you that will lead you to what your answer is first.
You're totally right. Oh my goodness. And then whenever you said zip it. So I really want to explore that a little bit more because, and again, it's tough. The reason why you've been promoted or selected into this role is because you have a high level of knowledge, expertise, you're probably pumped. You're like, listen, I'm ready for this. Here we go. And you're telling us, zip it.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
You've already proved yourself. You've already gotten to that position. Yep. I don't think anybody has said, I loved my boss from the minute I met them because they gave me all their opinions about everything I'm working on. Like, no.
Can we stop right there as a listener? I need you to replay that. Like that was gold. No one has ever said that.
My favorite boss is the one that came in and just ripped everything I did from day one. Like, no, that's not. Your favorite bosses are the people that came in, got to know you, got to know your family, really listened to your work, talked about your concerns, took it all in, and honestly, probably just didn't change anything right away until they understood the whole picture of everything. I think if you really think about that, and it's hard, don't get me wrong, because you're like, oh, I have this great idea. Oh, I want to say this. I've seen this in my other job. Zip it. Just don't do it, because your only thing you are building up is your own ego. That's it. You're making yourself feel good.
The only thing you're building up is your own ego. Yeah. And so whenever you get this leadership position, you have to pick up your ego and set it to the side.
You punt it. Just punt it down the street for at least a little bit. Just get rid of it, because you don't know anything. Let's just say it.
I at least said that I was on the motorcycle and it was on a sidecar. I mean, geez. So,
but I like to get a little more aggressive. I've got a son who loves soccer. I'm like, just kick it down the street. Let's go.
I mean, okay, so you say that, and I'm joking, but at the same point in time, maybe it's the size of your ego. Maybe you need to punt it, or maybe it can sit on the sidelines. But it really depends on how your ego impacts, you as a person and the interactions that you have, the decisions that you make. So. How long should a leader zip it though? Like, it's not going to be forever.
No. And I think it depends on the people that you're leading. It really does. If you have an underperformer who is making really bad decisions, that zip it might be the first week so you get to know them, because you can't let the business go into the ground. Like, that might be the reality. But I would say for the majority, that middle group, it's probably going to be 30 to 60 days, because I don't think you can learn everything that they've been working on. If you, and it's going to be longer. It'll probably be 90 if you have a touch base once a week. You got to touch base once a week, know somebody, unless you're going to their meetings, unless you're getting to know their teams in an authentic way. I think it's 60 to 90 days for most. That's my opinion.
And I think, well, in your opinion, is very important to me. So you are the expert here. No, I agree with you. And that's what I've seen. That's what I've seen here as well. That's what I've seen with our clients. And, and several leaders, and even being myself in a leadership role, it's not just that we say these things, we apply them as well. And it's because we are getting to know each team member. But you even highlighted, getting to know their families, their interest, and really that means valuing them. I mean, seeing them as people first, then understanding strengths, weaknesses. How does that work? And, and what are they aware of as well? Are they aware of their strengths and weaknesses?
And you're not going to remember it all at first. So thinking that in the first 30 days, you're going to know everybody, their kids' names, their favorite hobby, no. And take a note, write it in a note when you get out of the meeting, put it all together. And it's going to take some repetition for you to remember that. A good thing that I say is once you can remember their family, their kids, their favorite thing to do on the weekend, and you remember to ask about all of them, then you can start having an opinion. But if you can't do those, then you don't know enough about them.
Jennifer just dropped the mic. Okay. Then you can have an opinion.
Yeah.
You cannot have an opinion until then, or at least share it. Yeah. So, all right. Well, and I want to endorse you. I 1,000% agree. So this is very important information. And this is solid gold for those listening, because I mean, you really don't have these sort of conversations. No one tells you this whenever you're going into a leadership role, unless you have a really strong and good mentor or some kind of coach, that sort of thing. I mean, otherwise you're just showing up and trying to do the best that you can, which again, going back to solid, good intentions, but this is really, you need to follow this model. You need to give it a little razzle dazzle. Like, that's how I'm going to remember this. But okay, so outline it again, because I know some people tune in a little bit later, but okay, what was the model that you've given us?
So razzle dazzle, we'll shorten it to RAZ. So reflect, take the time to figure out who you are. What are some of your triggers? What are the things you believe about yourself? And kind of how you've shown up in the past. Then A is assess, to think, what kind of leader do you want to be? Again, a great way to think about that is, who have been your great leaders? How did they show up? What are the 2 to 3 things you want to stand for? And make sure that they are seamless through all of your messages, email, everything. And then Z, zip it, which is always my favorite. I don't know why, but Z, zip it. Just be quiet until you know about your teams, you know the business, and you can fully explain it back to them. You can have an opinion, like you said, write it down in your little notebook and keep it for later, because I guarantee you it'll change within a month. But be quiet, listen, learn, get to know your team, and show that you are an authentic, caring leader, because that's how people are going to become invested in you as well.
I'm telling you that RAZ is it's cutting edge. Like, that's how I introduced you. You literally gave us gold, and now this is going to go national. Like, are we going to go viral? Is this it?
Viral.
Is this I was looking for viral. So RAZ, but in all honesty, like, have that as a cheat sheet, write that down beside you. So like the acronym RAZ, you can put that beside you, hold it, whatever notepad at the top of your page for that day, RAZ, just as a reminder to help, you in this new role. And I say you, the listener, but this is, I mean, it really is gold. And because it's really just like the guidance that everyone needs. And I think that when you're walking into this new situation, you can really destroy relationships really quickly.
So fast.
Showing up as a leader, the first impressions matter, and you have to work. If you do something that's ultimately going to destroy the relationship with one of your team members, you have to work so hard to regain their trust or gain, even that level of vulnerability. And so if you have this RAZ model and you're applying this as you're starting a new role and, getting into this new leadership position, it will work for you, and you will then build such authentic relationships. You will have, again, some buy-in that you may not have had before.
And one more point to that, your team will always work harder for you if they truly believe who you are and they see that you are working on things and admitting when you're wrong. Like, think about it, to your point about it takes time. Think about those horrible bosses you had. I guarantee you knew in the first 2 meetings, you were not going to jive. You did not want to work for them. 2 meetings. That's all it took. And so think about that. If you really don't take the time to work this model
You're right.
and have a clear vision, you're you are going to be working against yourself for the majority of your time in this role. So taking the time beforehand, an hour, 30 minutes as you drive into the office to work the model and figure it out, or spend the entirety of your time in this leadership position fighting against the people who are supposed to be helping you and can make your life easier. That's it.
Solid. Okay, so I want to close with this, and I'm putting you on the spot. All right, and I'll talk real slow so you can think about it. But I want you to give all the leaders that are listening, or future leaders that are listening, what is one piece of advice that you would leave them with?
I think the best piece of advice I can give them is to be a student and to never think you know more than anyone else. Because the reason I say that is there's been so many times in my career where I've switched positions or where I've seen other leaders switch positions. And the minute that they have that feeling that they know more than people is the minute that they crash and burn. One, because they're not willing to say that they're wrong. Two, they're not willing to take the advice of the very, very intelligent people that they work for. And three, they're making bad hires because they want to be the smartest person in the room. Take your time, learn, be humble. I think if you can just constantly be a student, you will always be ahead. It's just how it is. And so come with a learning mentality, learn from those around you. That's my biggest piece of advice. And I know you said one, but know yourself. Because if you don't know yourself, it's never, I know you said one. I can't help it.
You said student. This isn't a student, was an umbrella for multiple sub bullets.
Student of yourself too. There you go.
You know, I said all these things at the beginning and they have all proven to be true, because at the end of the session, I'm like, man, I have so much work to do. I have so much to think about. And you really are just a catalyst for growth and change and an inspiration. And so it's always a pleasure talking to you. I should do this on the regular. I should schedule a weekly session with you.
I'm here for it. I would love it. I think the world of you and everything you do. So anything I've told you from the beginning, I'll ride your coattails, whatever you do. You just tell me where.
Well, same thing. I'm holding on tight to yours. So as we close, if there was someone that just wanted to reach out, pick your brain in regards to leadership, ask you a question that came up from this session, how would they get in touch with you?
Yeah, I would say LinkedIn's the best. I'm in HR, so I'm always on there trying to find good talent. Just reach out to me. It's Jennifer Watson. My main name is Neuville. Spell it for you. Neuville. And then you can reach out to my personal email. It's JN like Nancy, EU, V like Virginia, ILL@gmail.com. You can tell I've done that a couple of times. But
it's like, you have some practice.
I love meeting people. That's actually how I met you, was just reaching out for no other reason than getting to know people. And so I'm always willing to connect, talk, meet new people. I think it's just the best way to build your perspective.
Build authentic connections as well. So thank you so much again. And for the listeners, if this episode resonated with you and you also want to get in touch with Jennifer, look at the description. You're going to see her information, but also give us a like, subscribe, follow, share it with someone that you know is either they should be promoted or they're going into a leadership role. Thanks so much for tuning in. Can't